You guys are good.
We're here with Jack Hunter, and he's willing to discuss anything. So I decided to pick foreign policy. I think the most important issue in foreign policy is when we should go to war. So my question is, do you have a principle that permits you to determine when we should go to war and when we shouldn't?
Well, obviously, when we're attacked, I mean, we have a constitution that has a Congress that's supposed to, declare war formally. It was supposed to be sort of a safe valve for overeager executives who want to go to war, as we've seen in recent times and times past. When we're attacked directly, obviously, you can make the broader argument that when American interests are in danger. But the problem with that is executives who are eager to go to war will broaden that definition to basically mean anything is in our interest, therefore giving them sort of a blank check for war anywhere. So that's always dangerous. I think
So just because we say something is in our interest, like you said, I mean, that's very ambiguous. We have interests everywhere in the world, right? So then there's an excuse to go to war any place.
I guess I should say our national security interests. Anything. I mean, the reason you have a military and you have a national defense is to defend the country. So anything that can physically threaten us, or we live in a technological age. So obviously, people marching on your shores, you defend yourself. There's that, but there are probably other threats, cyber threats, and things that are out there. What we don't do is go to war needlessly or unconstitutionally, because what does that do? That creates more threats. That creates more people in the world who want to go to war with us, who want to attack us and don't like us.
So your principle is self-defense. If we're attacked, and may I add, if there's an imminent threat of attack,
Sure.
that you can corroborate and you can prove with evidence,
Right.
then I guess you can make a case that we should go to war. Other than that, we shouldn't go to war. Is that your
Yes,
position?
I think we should be very reluctant to go to war. The Iraq War was an absolute mistake. Our intervention in Libya was an absolute mistake. The reason we have ISIS today is because of those two wars. Arming rebels in Syria, some of whom are Al-Qaeda and some of whom are aligned with ISIS, is a mistake. Almost every intervention we've been involved in the last 15 years, and certainly beyond that, it's come back to bite us in some pretty serious ways. The idea that Americans wouldn't rethink foreign policy, as you still hear from a lot of establishment Republicans in particular, and people like Hillary Clinton at this point, after the lesson of Iraq, after the lesson of Libya, and after the lesson of Syria, is insane. These are crazy people. They act like, the Washington foreign policy consensus, they act like that they have some sort of wisdom that the average person doesn't. No, they don't. These are crazy people that would repeat all these wars all over again. They're nuts.
It's amazing, don't you think? And right here, I'm surrounded by all of them, and it's nice to talk to you who have a different opinion.
Very nice to talk to you as well. Thank you.
So, why do you think all these people continue to believe that this interventionist policy, which, as you were saying, we end up giving great new U.S. weapons to terrorists now, and because the people we support abandon their armaments, their weapons, and then the terrorists take them. All these things, like, how come they continue to espouse this interventionist policy?
Well, I think there's two primary reasons, and since we're at the conservative political action conference, let's put it in that context. Conservatives of foreign policy, certainly during the Bush administration and many of the neoconservatives and hawks that we saw come after that, treat foreign policy the way Democrats and liberals treat domestic policy. They think that the things that we know we can't do at home with government, that we can somehow export that sort of big government mentality to places like Syria and Libya and somehow just mold a democracy out of nothing where the ingredients aren't really there to begin with. The second reason I would say is conservatives in particular became so attached to defending and justifying the Iraq War during the Bush administration. The neoconservatives still defend regime change, what we did with Gaddafi, that even though it's an obvious disaster to the rest of the world and certainly the people who live in those countries, they can't bring themselves to say we were wrong. If you were really wrong about something in such a monumental, disastrous, absolutely horrible way, you could do one or two things. You could say, you know what, that was a bad thing we did. We should never do it again. Or to save face, you could say, you know what, it actually wasn't a bad thing. It's actually a good thing, and you can sort of cherry pick and pretend like it was justified, morally right, and you go on, you continue to do the same old bad things all over again. That's what the Republican establishment is on foreign policy. That's what Hillary Clinton is on foreign policy. She thinks Barack Obama has a good foreign policy. These people are crazy, once again.
So then their big excuse is we just didn't stay long enough.
Right. Right. So if the
Like
Department of
50 years.
Education, if the Department of Education only had another extra $1 billion and was around another 15 years, American education would somehow get better. No conservative believes that. Well, our foreign policy is the same way. You have to have a strong military. You have to have the ability to defend the country. But trying to be the world's policeman, trying to do everything in every nook and cranny in every part of the world with the U.S. military leads to nothing but weaker national security for our country. I mean, time and time again, how many times is it going to have to be proven?
Well, here's an interesting question. You know, Donald Trump came out against the war in Iraq rightfully.
Right.
He says it was a big mistake. And I didn't see all these neocons criticizing him. They seem like sheep.
Right.
When somebody with some power or some authority goes against them, then they just keep quiet. They didn't attack him for saying the obvious, like you just said.
Well, they have attacked him. Look,
But not for that. You remember when he first
they
came
have.
out? When he first came out, not much blowback for pointing out the obvious fact that the Iraq War was a big mistake.
From the actual neoconservatives, we have heard that from your Bill Kristol type and Max Boot and Daniel Pletka and all those people that got us into Iraq and all. We've heard it from those people. We heard that when Ron Paul said it. We heard that when his son Rand Paul said it. It is their religion. These people,
With Rand Paul and Ron Paul, yes.
but even with
I
Donald,
didn't see so much with Donald Trump. They were afraid of him.
well, we have. I mean, you hear Marco Rubio, who's the neoconservatives' favorite
No.
candidate in this
No.
race. They attack him specifically for attacking George W. Bush. How dare you attack George W. Bush? They get really angry. It is their religion. They believe this in their heart of hearts. And look, I don't like Donald Trump. I think he's a disaster for the country. I think he's a disaster for the Republican Party.
Well, I
But
agree.
He's right about that. He's
But, yeah,
absolutely right about it, and
well-
Republican audiences need to hear it.
Yeah, regardless of whether he's insulting people and bringing coarseness and,
Right.
and rudeness to the debate, when he says something that's true, we got to support him, right?
Right. He's right about the Iraq War. At least that.
Thank you, Jack, for an interesting interview.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We got enough.
Yeah, yeah.